Okay, right now then, we're going to start on Senate Bill 5121, which is establishing a marijuana research license. Senator Cole Wells is the prime sponsor of that bill. We have 11 people that want to testify on this bill, so we're going to use the 2-minute clock because we know we have more people wanting to testify on 5052. So we want to try to get everyone heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kathleen Buckley, and I'm staff to this committee. Before you is Senate Bill 5121, establishing a marijuana research license. As a matter of background, there are several provisions in code regarding the research on marijuana. We have the Controlled Substances Therapeutic Research Act, which was enacted in 1979, and from what I was able to discern from the Board of Pharmacy, hasn't been used in at least 10 years or more. We have the University of Washington and the Washington State University authorized to conduct scientific research on the efficacy and safety of administering marijuana as part of medical treatment. Both universities are authorized to develop and conduct studies to ascertain the general medical safety and efficacy of marijuana. However, no provision was made for either university to grow marijuana or to otherwise obtain marijuana. Also, as a matter of background, the Life Sciences Discovery Fund is established in 2005 to foster growth of the state's life sciences sector and improve the health and economic well-being of its residents. They invest money from the Master Tobacco Settlement Agreement in research and development across Washington that demonstrate the strongest potential for delivering health and economic returns to the state. The bill before you establishes a marijuana research license. It permits a licensee to produce and process marijuana, to test chemical potency and composition levels, conduct clinical investigations of marijuana-derived drug products, conduct research on the efficacy and safety of administering marijuana, and conduct genomic or agricultural research. Licensed applicants must submit their project to the Life Sciences Discovery Fund for approval. If the Life Sciences Discovery Fund does not find that the application meets the statutory requirements for research, the application must be rejected. Licensee may only sell marijuana it produces to other marijuana research licensees. They may contract with the University of Washington and Washington State University to perform research in conjunction with those universities. The fee for the research license is established as $250 for the application, and annual fee for issuance and renewal is $1,000. Half of that amount will go to the Life Sciences Discovery Fund. I have requested a fiscal note. I don't have one yet. But I would be happy to answer any questions.
Linda Hesley, thank you. Senator Cole-Wells, will you please present your bill?
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your scheduling a hearing on this bill. I've worked on this issue since 1995, the first year I came into the Senate. And at that time, the first activity that I embarked upon was with former Senator Bob McCaslin, who unfortunately has passed on. And his first wife had died of cancer, and so he was very interested in working with me on this issue. And we created a budget proviso that was included in the budget to provide about $85,000 to WSU to undertake a literature review on the efficacy and safety and other issues pertaining to the use of medical marijuana for those individuals who have certain medical conditions such as cancer. And we had that study done and was not conclusive. And the main reason it was not conclusive in terms of examining the literature was because research had not been approved by the federal government except at the University of Mississippi directly on patients. And so I have thought all along as I've worked on medical marijuana issues that we have to do all we can to ensure that vulnerable individuals who have serious medical conditions, who do use medical marijuana, which has been allowable since 1998 in our law, and can benefit from it, are to be assured that their product has been tested and that it is safe. Many times their immune systems are very vulnerable, and there are other conditions that can be critical in terms of what they ingest into their bodies. So this would provide for this new license. The Liquor Control Board would develop regulations to make sure that we will meet all safety requirements. We have to have testing for impurities, for pesticides, for whatever the case may be. This would allow for licensed researchers to be able to conduct efficacy studies, but also to grow the product themselves and to be able to contribute some of the product to the University of Washington and WSU for their research. Thank you for considering the bill.
Senator Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Cole-Wells, I'm trying to figure out who you imagine would be applying for these licenses. Would it be researchers for biotechnology companies, the private sector, or would it be researchers at our universities and maybe at the Hutch or organizations that are?
It could be all of those.
Okay.
You will hear testimony from an individual who has a business, a company who does this now, but would like to be able to grow the product herself in her company because she wants to be able to control the product. And so I suggest you hear from her.
Follow up, Madam Chair, just quick.
Go ahead.
I'm just concerned, if we had researchers apply for this license who are at UW or in a public university, would they be putting at risk the other federal research dollars? Is there any problem there?
We allow in statute since 2011, we have with Senate Bill 5073, the bill that the governor mostly vetoed, but this was preserved to have WSU and UW be able to conduct research. Now, they're not doing it necessarily with patients. However, there was nothing in the statute that indicates that they can grow the product themselves or how they actually obtain the product. So this would be very helpful for them.
Thank you.
So we have a list of people, so I've recognized you, and we have them in order, so don't think we're forgetting you, okay? Senator Cole-Wells, I'm second on the list, and my question is how many testing sites do you expect, and do you expect those sites to grow as this whole process of either medical marijuana or recreational marijuana continues?
That is a question to ask the people who will be coming up to speak, but also the Liquor Control Board. They will be developing the regulations, which I'm assuming will include restrictions on the amount of licenses that could be granted.
Senator Rivers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, Senator Cole-Wells, for driving this bill. I think it's awesome. My question, just a point of clarification. This bill isn't just to test the marijuana for contaminants and so forth. It's also for expansion for medical use, correct? Was that your intent?
Well, partially. I mean, I want to open it up, but they're not going to be, the licensees would not become producers for stores or for patients. This is purely for research purposes. And what we need, though, is to make sure that everything is done in a safe way. And the bill actually does include provisions for making sure that there's not abuse in this, which we do not want to have happen, and with penalties.
Senator Conway's next.
I think you may have answered my question. I was concerned about oversight here, and this bill obviously has fiscal implications if the liquor board is going to be overseeing this.
Senator Conway, you need to speak into your microphone.
I'm concerned about the fiscal implications. Obviously the liquor board is going to have some oversight of these research facilities to make sure that all laws are being, the act. I mean, there are a whole set of laws here regarding marijuana in this state. Right. And I'm just curious, does that mean a fiscal implication on this bill? And how many, I assume the liquor board is testifying on this bill as well?
Senator Conway, Kathy Buckley, the staff coordinator, said that she has requested a fiscal note, but it had not arrived yet. And then secondly, the Life Sciences Discovery Fund will have oversight too, because it would be making the determinations on who would be able to get the licenses.
Then Senator Baumgardner, and that's the last question. We'll go to testimony, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Colwell. I know how long you've been working on these issues, and it's much appreciated. Would wonder how this bill would compare to how opiates are treated. And is in general, is there restrictions on opiates in terms of research, and is that a template for how marijuana could be treated in terms of public interest?
I think marijuana should be treated similarly. It's not an opiate, but in terms of being able to have research conducted, which is the case now and under federal law. It's very tricky, though, when we talk about marijuana because it's a Schedule I drug. And some of the opiates come from cocaine and opium, which oddly is a Schedule II or Schedule III drug. So that's not my area of expertise, but I think we should have marijuana research being conducted all around the country. And it's not. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Senator Cole-Wells, for presenting your bill and answering all the questions. With that, we're going to start public testimony.
Calling up to testify, James Parabello, Jessica Tanani, and Ryan Day.
And I just wanted to give you a reminder, we're going to do the 2-minute clock. So.
Great. Good morning, Chair Becker and members of the committee. My name is James Parabello, Legislative Liaison for the Liquor Control Board. On behalf of the board members here in support of Senator Colwell's Bill 5121. We thank Senator Colwell for her work on this bill. The Liquor Control Board is charged in this bill with licensing the qualifying research institutions. We believe the bill will kickstart and foster the kind of research into the medicinal effects of marijuana that is vitally needed to ensure patients will receive the proper care they deserve. In answer to your question about the fiscal impact on us, it's still yet to be determined. However, we don't expect to incur significant costs, as this will be a relatively small amount of licensees we'd expect. But that's all I have, really. Thank you for your support, and we urge your passage of the bill.
Thank you. We're going to hold questions till the panel's done, then we'll do it. And I want them to be clear, fast questions.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jessica Tanani. I'm the CEO of VertiBio. My background is in biotech. I became familiar with the medical cannabis industry as a patient. Roughly a decade ago, I became very ill. When I initially tried cannabis, I weighed roughly 35 pounds less than I weigh now. I think cannabis played a role in saving my life, but I also believe from a scientific perspective, we have failed patients miserably. Roughly a year ago, I decided to form a biotech company with the goal of researching therapeutic and safety issues concerning cannabis. However, we had struggled as a company with where we fall under Washington state law. Under 502, licensees are allowed to grow and sell cannabis, but it does not provide guidance for companies wanting to grow for research and not for sale. The current medical statute provides even less clarity on the issue. In order to research cannabis, we would like to see a regulated license structure be put in place that would allow researchers to grow cannabis within the state, perform testing, and collaborate with other researchers. In the past year, we have completed several research projects at VertiBio. For example, we had completed the DNA sequencing of the cannabis genome. To put this in perspective, the Human Genome Project cost the taxpayers $3.3 billion and took 19 years. Currently on my computer in this room, I have the equivalent worth of several human genomes of cannabis data. The cannabis data, we've shown that the genetic variability within the cannabis genome is roughly 10 times that of which we see in humans. We hear the word cannabis and we often think of a single plant, but please take a minute and think about that 10 times variability number. Imagine 10 times variability in this room. People 10 times taller are 10 times the variability in eye color, and that is what we are dealing with cannabis. The diversity of the cannabis genome leads to different cannabinoid profiles. The plant makes 85 cannabinoids. You can think of them as small molecule therapeutics. Examples of molecule therapeutics include aspirin and Ambien, which, as you know, give very different effects to humans. The same can be said for the cannabinoids. I think the most shocking thing about cannabis is that these unique cannabinoids often work together to allow something called the entourage effect. This entourage effect means in order to get therapeutic utility, patients need to have a combination of these cannabinoids. With the 85 cannabinoids, this means in order to research, we would either have to research on the plant or or produce a compound library that contains 85 compounds to the 85th power, which is not realistic. At VertiBio, we have also partnered with universities and even national labs.
I'm going to have to call your time. I'm sorry. Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, thank you for having this hearing today. My name is Ryan Day. As some of you know, my son Hayden Day, he is 6 years old now. He started CBD, a cannabinoid therapy, at 4 years old as one of the youngest patients in the state. I'm here to tell you that we need as much research as possible, and we need to open up as many pathways as possible to that research. Truly frighteningly was when we moved to Washington State to start this therapy for my son. My source of information and learning how to treat my son was other parents on Facebook. That is atrocious. I mean, you say how bad it is to have someone searching WebMD to learn about medical conditions. Try talking to the guy in Portland who's been treating his daughter, or the person in Yakima who's been treating their child. I want valid, critical, scientific review of this, because I know I'm not objective. I know other parents aren't objective. We shouldn't have to teach each other. We should have experts who are doing it, and I hope that you'll do everything that you can to open up this pathway so that we can get some real good, honest research so that we can treat our children and our other patients in the best way possible.
Thank you, Mr. Day, for coming again, and thank you for your continued efforts on this. And Senator Conway has a question of one of you of the panel.
James, this question for you. I see in the description of what the Liquor Control Board will be regulating here, oversight. I don't see any comments about location of research facilities, which may be a rather big issue for many communities. That included in your list as to where these will be located?
I don't believe the bill determines that or subjects them to the same buffer zones as retail locations, for example. But that is something we can certainly look into.
I see you say additional requirements deemed necessary by the state liquor board. And I assume you'll be able to deny licenses if they don't meet your criteria. Is that correct?
Certainly.
Thanks.
And will there be public hearings like there is in the liquor license world on around these licenses?
I believe that would be part of the process, yes.
Would you get back to me on that?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Senator Frott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Day, thank you for your testimony. I think I've heard you before. My question to you is, if we have different research pathways, which I think makes a lot of sense, there could be a lot of different research, biotech companies and other consortiums, for example, doing this kinds of research. Do you think it would be good to have a single clearinghouse, perhaps at a university, maybe the University of Washington or WSU or something? It was suggested recently in a Seattle Times article that might be a good idea for patients and the public to kind of go through, not to monopolize the research, but basically to have a repository of information. Was that something you think would be helpful to you as a consumer?
Absolutely. We have PubMed online where all federal government research is put out there so that people can consume it. Obviously, the more information, the better. Now, that being said, we also need legitimate sources of research for our medical providers. I'm sorry, but cannabisresearch.com is not something that I am going to put a lot of stock in, because I don't know if it's been peer reviewed. I don't know if it has actually faced the sort of strict criteria that we set on some of our more esteemed journals. So a public clearinghouse where we actually have peer-reviewed research that meets that criteria of being legitimized, for lack of a better word, I would love that. I mean, I'm a bit of a science geek, but I think anybody wants more information, especially when they're dealing with a critically ill family member.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Senator Brown has a quick question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for, is it Laura in the middle? Jessica. Okay, sorry about that. And this is kind of going along what the gentleman next to you just testified to. How do you make sure that the product you're procuring is the same when you do your genetic testing?
That's actually why we want this license in place. When we first went out to start this company, we decided that we wanted to do clinical research on cannabis. And what we did was we went out and we actually purchased products labeled as exactly the same thing in dispensaries. And what we found was about a 4,000% variability between the cannabinoids. To put that in perspective, dog food has a 10% FDA threshold. And so we actually, the only way we can do this research is being able to grow and regulate the grow, because it's not possible within the current market to do the research.
Thank you. Thank you for testifying. We're going to move on. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, the next panel will be John Worthington, Tyler Marquardt, and Laura Worth. And then after that, on deck, we'll have Michael West, Jedediah Haney, and Morocco Kiyashna Tosha.
Hello, I'm John Worthington. I'm supporting the bill. It's more important than you probably realize that we do this to answer some questions. The federal government's going to want us to use the University of Mississippi pot that they grow, and it's not going to be good enough to do the type of research that we need to do. We're going to have to step out on this one. There's no other way around it. But we can be assured that we've done it before. In 1978, Jimmy Carter was president then, so he wasn't necessarily willing to crack down on it. But we need to study sativas, hybrids and indicas, and we need to do this ourselves because it hasn't been done to the degree that it needs to be done. And eventually, it'll be a good fallback position so that we can actually distribute to the have-nots and allow the people that can grow for themselves to continue to distribute to themselves if our current distribution model becomes terminated for whatever reason. So I think it's a very, very important legislation. If you look at the federal CSA, they have the same research language. Their only problem, again, is that we have to use the University of Mississippi stuff for our research, and that's not going to get it done. So I support the bill. I look forward to working with the sponsors to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hello, my name is Tyler J. Marquardt. I'm the Director of Allele Seeds Research. I'm also the Production Manager at the Northwest Patient Resource Center. I have a background in molecular plant science from Washington State University. I also studied organic agriculture there. I have worked extensively with President Elson Floyd with getting marijuana research on campus. And the number one reason he says that we are not allowed to do campus research is because cannabis is Schedule I in Washington State. Because that matches the federal scheduling, they won't actually do anything. It requires extensive permitting from the DEA to start producing and doing research on campus. So the number one thing that I say that I actually applaud Senator Jean Coley-Wells on this amazing bill and how awesome it is. If I could do a jig right now, I totally would, because I'm a science geek and this is amazing. Research is awesome, but it's totally inappropriate. But yeah, definitely we need to touch on Schedule I and removing that to broaden our ability. Oregon has already done it. They moved to Schedule II, and Iowa has also. Their Board of Pharmacy has done it. And I just want to touch on a couple other things. Washington State University is the land-grant university for Washington State, so they are extremely tied with the federal government as far as their research money goes, so they're bound to Schedule I on federally, but if we can show them on a state level that we've changed it, we can make the move soon to change it federally and get research in. You heard from another biotech company earlier, there are hundreds of terpenes, hundreds of flavonoids, and 85 different cannabinoids. It's essential to have all these together and research the entourage effect that comes from them. Also, I'd like to introduce something called seed production. We are talking a lot about clones, and nobody's talking about seed production. When we harvest or when we produce wheat, when we produce corn in this country, we don't plant thousands of clones. Cloning is a good way to do it, to get exact replicas, but when we plant seeds, they are extremely vigorous, they're high immunity, and plants are just like people. We need to treat plants just like people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll have your testimony, please.
My name is Laura Worth. I'm Vice President of LifeSense Technologies, a small research and development company on Vashon Island. We are interested in improving the quality of cannabis research. In particular, we're interested in the relationship of cannabis to preventing Alzheimer's. We would like to do research on this. This is an example of why we're supporting this bill. We'd like to see the bill expanded to go beyond research into treatment, to look also at prevention, to look at management of conditions, palliative care, and cure. so that the bill could expand beyond treatment. We'd also like to see more research done by many different research organizations and not have two universities basically serve as a limitation on the quality and quantity of research that's done. If you're interested in the subject of cannabis research, please go to our new website representing the CMAP project, which is cmap420.org. Thanks.
Thank you. Senator Rivers, you have a question?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for testifying.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. We have Michael West, Jedediah Haney, and Muraso Kiashna Toka. I apologize. I apologize for that. Senator Danmeyer left me with the difficult names. I apologize. And then on deck we have Shelley Dawn Early, Chris Maxwell, and Arthur West.
All right. For the sake of time, if you wouldn't mind starting.
My name is Michael West. I'm the Director of Technology for Green Lion Farms, Director of Scientific Research at the Association of Cannabis Growers and Breeders, and I am a cannabis refugee. I moved to Colorado in 2005 in order to avoid getting thrown in jail for the medical use of cannabis to reduce my seizures. Since then, I have intentionally been researching cannabis, both at the University of Colorado as well as on the black market, hoping to develop biomedical products that can help reduce some of the pain and suffering that medical patients across the U.S. have suffered for. I truly hope that you guys promote biomedical research and allow biomedical companies as well as 502 licensees to produce biomedical products so that universities and researchers like myself can pursue products that can save lives. A couple things briefly that I hope that you change. First and foremost, I believe that medical researchers should be able to source both cannabis as well as products from hopefully 502 licensees as well as other biomedical research companies. Secondarily, I believe that we should extend the research from just the University of Washington and WSU to open their arms to all Washington state universities. There's numerous researchers, uncountable research students that are fascinated with this, and we need to open the doors to allow research in more than just the two universities. Industrial hemp has been researched at Washington State University since 1984. The biocomposites produced there are currently being used in several private companies' space exploration programs. We should include industrial hemp in this research as well as potential biomedical products. Furthermore, we need to excuse me, when looking at the financial implications, all I have to do is state that last year, biomedical companies spent $380 million on cancer research alone. The potential products that could be created are far and away greater than any recreational cannabis company could produce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Morocco Kashnatocha. I'll make my comments very brief. I run the Green Buddha Patient Co-op. That's the oldest medical collective in the state, the one that's existed long before the commercial rise. This should be the one no-brainer marijuana bill this session. This will be the only one that you're going to see everybody get up and stand and say, please vote for this one, please implement this. This is the one that every single cannabis activist in our state supports right now. This is a no-brainer. The federal government has stymied federal research in cannabis science, cannabinoid medicine, and if we pass this bill, we will become a center not only nationally but worldwide in cannabinoid research, cannabis science, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, this would be bigger than the tech industry in Washington state. This will drive our economy for the next 20 years. Marijuana is the only growth industry this country has right now. If we do this, we can create strains of cannabis that will properly grow outside in the state of Washington. That's currently an issue. And so if we do this, we'll create strains that will thrive in our state, ensuring that I-502 will be a wonderful economic success also for the state of Washington. So it should be a no-brainer. Please support and vote for and implement this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you, and committee members. Excuse me. My name is Jedediah Haney. I'm the president of CAUSEM. We're a trade association representing both medical marijuana and recreational marijuana out of Central Washington in Yakima. Most of my points have been made, so I won't reiterate them to beat them to a pulp. However, I will enforce a few that I think really comes from our perspective. We come from an agricultural community. 1.1 billion annually comes out of our community, and a lot of that, it has to do with multiple agricultural industries that are vibrantly alive, and all of those industries have avenues to research. Specifically, I'd like to talk about the industry that we really lean on in our economy over there. It's the hop industry. Over 70% of the nation's hops are made there, and genetic research is very important for that industry. And I bring this up because this is independent research, and hop variety and genetics is very comparable to what's going to be happening with cannabis research. It's a very close agricultural commodity. I'd like to just state that this research is being taken upon these companies, and that we should look at these licenses as being standalone individual licenses that will have specific regulatory framework around them. We should encourage these, and we should also look at the ability to help invest in these. We are aware that Washington State has investment pool, but biotech industry is a national industry, and we would like to see the national industry thrive as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll get the next panel up right away, please. And while the panel is coming up, I have a question for staff, if I may. I don't know if I read the bill correctly or not, but I want to make sure I'm clear on it. Does this bill limit the research centers to University of Washington, WSU, or does it have room for expansion for other research?
It does not limit it to those universities. What it does is it specifically states that those universities may work with a licensee to conduct research.
Thank you. Okay, please go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I'd like to speak in favor of this bill, and I see this bill not as a cannabis bill, but a scientific research bill. As the son of a chemical researcher who works for the other UW.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Oh, I'm Arthur West, 22nd District. Thank you. As the son of a chemical researcher who works at the other UW, I can tell you from personal knowledge that nothing is more critical to the advancement of technology and the quality of life than scientific research. Everything we wear, the cars we drive, the appliances, and technology that brings light and information into our homes are all the result of applied scientific research. Not being able to conduct scientific research in any field stifles the growth of technology and is contrary to it adversely affects the quality of life of our citizens in the state of Washington. We need to be able to research in all fields openly and to the extent allowed by law. This law needs to be passed so that we can conduct the necessary research into this field, as we do in every other field of research, so that our technology can advance and our quality of life can be improved. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Shelley Early, and I'm new to Tacoma. And one of the things, I don't want to repeat, I agree with pretty much everything everyone has said so far. One of the things I think is important for research is it might help to educate the healthcare system better. I've had recent issues with doctors, they're just not educated on the medical cannabis. So I just really feel like research would be very helpful for reaching more of people in the healthcare professions to know more about how it affects people's health, their pain, Even in, as some people mentioned, our industrial industry could just be crazy, and hemp actually does help clean the earth, soils from dangerous toxins. So agriculturally, it would be very beneficial for a lot of places in our great state here, Washington. So again, I want to just reiterate that I agree with everything pretty much that's been said on the research of cannabis.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Chris Maxwell. I'm from Texas. I talk a little funny, and I apologize, but I do love the state of Washington. And I'm the son of a pharmacist, and my dad believed that aspirin was really the only thing that he trusted because he knew what it did. And I'm here because this is really more about an intellectual pursuit of truth. I really want to see Washington State become the source of truth as we really find out what this stuff does, right?
We want you to talk to us, okay? Please, not to everybody else, okay?
Yeah, I just want to tell you guys that this is not about getting high. This is about truth and really understanding how we can comfort those in need with something that we don't completely understand because it's complex. I represent a company called Cloud Market that's a pure technology company, and I'm really interested in the pursuit of truth through research and enlightenment, and I'm here saying that not doing this would leave Washington behind, and doing this would let Washington State become the source of truth. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the testimony of those who signed up to testify before the committee. We did have a number of other people sign in with a position on the bill. I'm going to go ahead and read off the pros. These people were all signed in pros: Allison Holcomb, Laura Worth, Brian Enslow, Candace Bach, Jennifer Lombardo, Jason Duck, Martin Smith, Shango Los, Earl Thacker, George Penzenik, Melissa Johnson, Christopher Ricketts, Amber Lewis, Bailey Hirschberg, Alex Cooley, Linda Bautista, Tina Wokal, Austin Wright Pettibone, Jacqueline Knudsen, Sharon Ness, Lisa Buchanan, Scott Ward, Michael Heathcote, Tim Sadivi, Courtney Braswell, Edward Guillen, Joe McConkey, Sean Wagenseller, Todd Derringer. And I want to note there were a couple of cons, Madam Chair: Steve Sarich, Michael Ray, David Vey, and we had two people sign in as other, David Murray and Joe Rammel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And with that, that concludes our public testimony on Senate Bill 5121. And now we're going to go, and I am very tickled to say we have built in another 5 minutes, so we will start our testimony on Senate Bill 5025 with a staff report and have Senator Rivers present her bill. 5052, what is it?
I got it.
Oh.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Before you is Senate Bill 5052 relating to establishing the Cannabis Patient Protection Act. For the record, my name is Kathleen Buckley. I'm staff to the committee. I'm going to give you a matter of some background, and I provided some side-by-sides in your files and in your EBB. First, I'd like to refer you to a chart called The Effect of Legislative Amendments, and it gives you a background on Initiative I-692, which originally permitted the medical use of marijuana in the state, and that was passed by the voters in 1998. At the time, it was limited to healthcare professionals. Only physicians could authorize the medical use of marijuana. It defined possession amounts as a 60-day supply. It provided patients with an affirmative defense and provided that patients under the age of 18 could use marijuana for medical use, but a parent or guardian had to be responsible for the production, acquisition, and decision as to dosage and frequency. It also provided for a primary caregiver, and this was somebody who was designated in writing to act as the primary caregiver for that patient and could be the caregiver for only one person at a time. The conditions for the medical use that were authorized for the medical use of marijuana were outlined in that initiative. They include cancer, HIV, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy or seizure disorders, intractable pain, which at the time was limited to mean pain unrelieved by standard medical treatments and medications, as well as glaucoma. Then in 2007, the legislature amended that initiative, providing that law enforcement may take a sample of marijuana but may not seize the marijuana, kept that affirmative defense, however, required the Department of Health to adopt and rules what would constitute a 60-day supply, and changed primary caregivers to designated providers, removing the requirement that primary caregiver be responsible for the housing, health, or care of that patient. It also added in 2007 diseases that would also qualify for the medical use of marijuana. These include Crohn's disease, hepatitis C, and wasting diseases such as anorexia. In 2010, the healthcare professionals who may authorize the use of marijuana was expanded to include all the professionals who have prescribing authority under law. These would be physicians, physician assistants, advanced registered nurse practitioners, and naturopaths. The affirmative defense was retained. That was the biggest change in the 2010 law. In 2011, the legislature passed an omnibus bill that would have required for the licensing of producers, processors, and dispensers. It also created a system called collective gardens. The affirmative defense was retained, but it also created a registry, and patients who signed up on that registry would have been provided with patient arrest protection if they were in compliance with the law. The 60-day supply rule adopted by the Department of Health was adopted into statute that translated into 15 plants and 24 ounces. Regarding the age limits, it removed language requiring the parent or guardian to be responsible for the production, acquisition, and dosage of the minor child in their care. So provisions relating to the licensing of producers, processors, and dispensers were vetoed by the governor, who cited concerns about federal intervention. It left remaining collective gardens. And collective gardens in statute are defined as 10 qualifying patients who share responsibility for acquiring and supplying the resources required to produce, process, transport, and deliver marijuana for the medical use of their members. They may contain up to 45 plants and 72 ounces of usable marijuana, and no marijuana may be delivered to anyone outside of that collective garden. There was no provision in law in 2011 providing for the sale of marijuana from a collective garden or for the licensing of those collective gardens in statute. Then, in 2012, voters approved Initiative 502. Initiative 502 provided for the recreational use of marijuana and established a regulatory system for the production, processing, and distribution of limited amounts of marijuana for non-medical purposes. This was very similar, but not quite the same, but similar to the structure that was passed by the legislature that was ultimately vetoed by the governor for the medical side of marijuana. Under this system, the Liquor Control Board issues licenses to marijuana producers, processors, and retailers, and has adopted regulations for these operations. The number of these licenses is limited by the Liquor Control Board. Persons over 21 years of age may purchase up to 1 ounce of usable marijuana, 16 ounces of solid marijuana-infused product, 72 ounces of liquid marijuana-infused products, or 7 grams of concentrates at a licensed marijuana retailer. The bill before you regulates the medical use of marijuana through the regulatory structure provided in I-502. There are several patient-specific provisions that I'm going to go over with you. The qualifying terminal or debilitating conditions remain the same. However, there adds some definitions to the debilitating and intractable pain in statute. It provides that the condition must be severe enough to significantly interfere with the patient's activities of daily living and the ability to function, and must be able to be objectively assessed and evaluated. Healthcare professionals must have a documented relationship with their patient as a principal care provider or a specialist for the ongoing treatment of that terminal or debilitating medical condition. And they may not accept any form of pecuniary remuneration from a licensee or hold an economic interest in any business. Age requirements remain the same, but they're clarified. People under the age of 21 can use marijuana today. But the issue with pulling it in the recreational store is that you have to be 21 or older to enter the premises of a recreational store. So designated providers must be 21. These are people who could provide marijuana on behalf of a patient. Adults 18 to 21 may access medical marijuana if they're authorized by a healthcare professional, and they may purchase medical marijuana at a retail outlet. Those people under the age of 18 may access medical marijuana if their healthcare provider has authorized it and their parent or guardian consents. They may enter a medical marijuana outlet, but they may not purchase it. And they can only enter the outlet if they're with that parent or guardian. The system creates an authorization card through the Department of Health. Healthcare professionals who authorize their medical use of marijuana for their patients must notify the Department of Health that the patients qualify for this use. They must immediately do this through a computer and then issue a card through the healthcare professional. The authorization cards must contain a photograph of the patient or provider and must contain a unique identifying number for the patient or provider, and information on these authorization cards must be included in a medical marijuana authorization database, which will be developed by a third party contracted through the Department of Health. The only people who can access this database are the Department of Health to confirm healthcare professionals, the Department of Health to confirm tax, sales and tax exemptions, healthcare professionals as part of monitoring a patient's health, similar to the prescription monitoring program that's in place today. And law enforcement can access the database to confirm the validity of a card. It is a Class C felony for a person to access the database unlawfully. In order to have statutory provisions to be able to grow in their home and to have the sales and use tax exemption provided in the bill, patients must have an authorization card. Possession amounts are increased for patients with authorization cards. It's effectively 3 times the amount permitted for the recreational use. This is less than what they're permitted today. Patients today are permitted 15 plants and 24 ounces. Possession limits will be 6 plants unless a healthcare provider believes that, in their professional opinion, they could qualify for up to 15 plants. In retail stores that I'll get to in just a bit, they are not allowed to sell usable marijuana to patients. So anything that can be smoked is not allowed to be sold in a retail store. So I'll talk about possession limits as 3 times the amount for recreational, but it doesn't apply for being able to purchase usable marijuana in a recreational store. So patients can grow 6 plants in their home, and they can possess the usable marijuana that they can produce in their own home. So these are, patients are in compliance with the law, are provided arrest protection. It does retain an affirmative defense for patients who possess more than the statutory amounts, but can establish that they need that for their medical use. Similar to the system in place, only licensees may grow marijuana. Patients can grow. Designated providers can grow. Collective gardens are repealed, but a cooperative is established in its place. These are 4-person patient cooperatives where everyone in the cooperative must be registered with the Liquor Control Board, have an authorization card, and register the location of the cooperative with the Liquor Control Board. No cooperative may be located within 25 miles of a medical marijuana retail outlet, and the location must be the domicile of one of the patients who participate. Everybody in the cooperative must contribute labor. No money may be accepted. The Liquor Control Board will be the regulatory agency. The Department of Health will issue the authorization cards. They will also adopt rules in conjunction with the Department of Agriculture specific to medical products. And this includes whether there needs to be additional testing standards for medical products and safe handling requirements. The Liquor Control Board may conduct controlled purchase programs of all retail outlets, collective gardens, and cooperatives. This relates to determining whether there are sales to underage people. The requirement that the Liquor Control Board determine the number of licenses is removed. And as I averred to earlier, patients with an authorization card are provided a sales and use tax exemption should they purchase those products at a medical marijuana retail outlet. I have a partial fiscal note in my hands relating from the Department of Revenue. They cite losses due to that sales and use tax exemption of approximately under $3 million for the 2015-2017 biennium. As a matter of record, while medical marijuana is not regulated, the sale of medical marijuana is subject to sales and use tax as any sale of a product is in this state. And there are some retailers, I don't have the information in front of me, but there are some retailers who do collect that sales tax. So that's probably more information than you wanted to know. But I would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, we have several so far. Senator Frocht, Senator Dan Meyer, and Senator Bailey so far.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy, thank you for a very comprehensive report. I was looking in the bill, and I could not quite locate it, this section of the bill on the age requirement for minors. Can you kind of flesh out how that would work in terms of the authorization and parental consent? Would the parental consent be filed somewhere, or who would, I mean, would it just be a piece of paper that somebody would walk into a store with? How would that work?
Well, it would fall under the register or the database that that's developed by the bill. And so what happens is a healthcare professional can authorize, and it's section 16 of the bill. They may authorize the medical use of marijuana for qualifying patients who are under the age of 18 if the parent guardian participates. And what they would do is do the same system as they would for a person above the age of 21, register that person with the Department of Health, and they would get an authorization card.
Thank you.
Senator Danmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy, Initiative, the most recent one, Initiative 502, and the stores and the system associated with that kind of put it under the regulation of the Liquor Control Board and was pretty tightly regulated on a whole myriad of things, labeling, packaging, testing. How does that compare to the current medical market that we have in place?
So I-502 does not apply to the medical market. So recreational users or the recreational sale of marijuana are subject to the regulations adopted by the Liquor Control Board. There are no equivalent regulations for the medical market.
And who regulates the medical market?
The medical market is not regulated.
Okay. So if I'm looking to have a medical need, who assures that when I'm buying whatever I'm buying, that I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting to have the impact that I would hope to have?
So right now, a patient who qualifies for the medical use of marijuana, and that would be someone who has one of those terminal or debilitating conditions, would get what's called valid documentation from their healthcare provider. It's written on tamper-resistant paper. It's effectively, it's not a prescription, but it's close as you can get under the law that would authorize the patient for that medical use. The patient could then grow for themselves. They could designate someone to grow for them, or they could participate in something called a collective garden. The law is silent on how a patient would grow for themselves, where they would get that marijuana.
So the previous bill that we heard talked about research, and we had a gentleman testify about his son getting some. If I wanted to know I was getting that kind of marijuana, how would I know that I'm getting that? I just have to trust the person.
You would have to test that yourself.
And then the second thing we talked about in the previous bill about pesticides and things like that could be occurring in some of this marijuana. Do we have is there anything prohibiting, or is there any evidence that kind of the wrong substances could be showing up in marijuana in terms of those kind of hazardous substances that somebody might inadvertently get?
Well, we don't have any state testing of medical marijuana, but we do have some anecdotal evidence. I've read a Business Week article regarding testing a few dispensaries in town, or not in town, I think it was in Seattle. Anecdotally, they said from the tests that they proved, or the tests that they provided, they did find E. coli in many of the samples.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm absolutely fascinated by this conversation. One of the things that I'm real concerned about is liability. Mm-hmm. If we allow the sale, but if we don't regulate the content, is the state liable because we allow the sale of medical marijuana? Who's going to be liable when there are adverse effects?
Well, that's the system we have now, and I don't have an answer as to whether anybody has brought any action against the state for adverse effects.
Senator Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy, I had a question around the edibles. I understand under 502 they're supposed to be regulated. What are the regulations of edibles under the current system?
So under I-502, the Liquor Control Board has established rules on edible products, and basically they cannot be appealing to children. They have to have packaging restrictions, and I'm sure the Liquor Control Board can flesh that out a little bit more, but they have to list the THC content of the products, and I think they provide dosing or at least suggested dosing requirements, but they can fill that out. Regarding the medical side, because those requirements are not applicable to the medical side, edibles on the medical side do not have those standards.
So there's no safety or quality standards with regard to medical edibles?
Correct.
I'm going to ask a question, and then I'm going to keep going here. I wanted to see, our relationship with the federal government is tenuous at best, right? So under this whole thing, does having a largely unregulated medical system put the retail system in our state at risk with the federal government?
Well, that is a matter of interpretation with some of the federal guidance that we've been given. Several years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, or maybe it was just last year, the Cole Memorandum was issued by the federal government, which said that basically the federal government would not interfere with the state's medical marijuana system so long as it was well regulated. And they listed a list of criteria that the state had to meet, keeping it out of the hands of children, separating the activity from going across state borders, that sort of thing. More recently, there was a budget item in the federal funding bill that provided that no Department of Justice funds can be used to intervene with a state with a medical marijuana system. Now, in relation to the Cole Memorandum, it would be my guess as to whether that means does the system have to be well regulated, or is it just enough that you've enacted a law?
Thank you. Senator Conway?
Kathy, I assume any dispensary, medical dispensary, has to be licensed by a city or county. Is that correct?
Currently, right now, medical dispensaries as they exist are based on what's called the collective garden that's in statute. And I went over the collective garden is 10 patients who grow for themselves. Some of those have opened storefront kind of operations, and they're called dispensaries or access points. Now, some cities have been authorizing business licenses for these dispensaries as just part of regulating general business. But I do know, like the city of Seattle does have business licenses for people operating medical marijuana dispensaries.
I think Tacoma does as well. I'm just curious, have we any idea of the number of dispensaries licensed in the last year since the initiative's been passed?
I don't have that number here, but I can get that for you.
Like anecdotally, I've heard that we've had a growth in dispensaries here since the initiative has been passed, and if we can get some data on that, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
Thank you. And Senator Parlett?
My question was asked.
No, you passed?
My question
Okay.
was asked.
All right. Well, I'm going to close questions to Kathy Buckley, our staff member, and I have to tell you that no one could answer these questions like Kathy Buckley, our staff. She has learned more about marijuana than she probably ever wanted to know, but she is the resident expert. And at this point, I would actually like to have the sponsor of the bill present her bill to us officially, and then we'll move into public testimony.
Madam Chair, thank you. I just quickly have a quick question for Kathy. Of the 20 some odd states who have medical marijuana programs, how many of them do not have a registry?
They all have registries.
Except for us?
Except for us.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much for providing such a speedy opportunity to address this bill, this very important issue to our state. I'll keep my comments very, very brief because I think that we have lots of people in the room who would like to share their thoughts, and I think it's important that we hear from them as well. My primary objective in the presentation of this bill is to prevent a safe, affordable patient access for medical marijuana. We are in a situation where patients have no idea what they're getting when they go to get it. If they're purchasing from a dispensary, if they're growing it for themselves, they have some good idea. But we, with the two initiatives, have a responsibility to harmonize those while we put patient needs first. So with that, I commend this bill to you and ask you for a speedy exec. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move into public testimony, and again, we're going to do the 2-minute timer so we can hear as many people as possible. We're not going to be able to hear everybody, and I'm so sorry. Now, I would like you to speak specifically to the bill so that we can get your good and bad input from that. We all want to hear what you have to say.
And I will be, so I'll be calling up panels, and I'll call up the first panel to testify, and then I'll call up the panel to queue up behind them. We want to get as many people through this as possible, and I will be calling kind of pro and con and try to get the disparate views represented in public testimony. So with that, I'm starting with the first group called up will be Rick Garza, Jessica Tanani, and Ryan Day. And the second panel, queuing up behind them, will be John Worthington, Arthur West, and James Barber. Yeah, if Rick could start.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Rick Garza, Director, Washington State Liquor Control Board. On behalf of the board, I wish to thank the prime sponsor, Senator Ann Rivers, who spent a great deal of time this interim engaging with stakeholders from across the state, including the board, as to how we can ensure greater patient safety as well as public safety generally when it comes to medical marijuana. In the past 9 months since last session, I believe all who care about this issue have learned a lot. We've seen a massive proliferation of gray market dispensaries across the state, not only in the last 9 months, but in the last 2 and 3 years, after passage of I-502 and after failure of Senator Rivers' measure last year. We've seen expose after expose by journalists revealing the true nature of many of these dispensaries, the easy availability of marijuana to anyone, regardless of whether or not they even have an authorization card. We've seen testing of medicinal products revealing a troubling lack of safety precautions and a lack of information as to the contents of the majority of medicinal marijuana products sold. And we've seen many dispensaries illegally selling a product that was meant to serve needy patients. In short, we've seen the exploitation of loopholes in the law to feed a very profitable recreational market that led to safety concerns for legitimate patients. And I think it was shared through Senator Cole Wells that the vetoes that occurred in 2011 in fact would have created the regulatory scheme and the system that we're trying to create today, and unfortunately they were vetoed, and I think the reasons were shared. We see our role in this bill as helping ensure patients have access to medicinal products that are safe and trustworthy. The senator and sponsors achieve this by tasking us with licensing and regulating medicinal retail operations, holding them to the safety and security standards as we do recreational stores we regulate. I know it's coming to an end, Senator. I've also provided you with an opinion editorial that was written by former Senator Chris Marr in the Seattle Times. I think he very eloquently states the issue with respect to this, and because of time, I'd like to end. But thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
My name is Jessica Tanani, right again. My main concern with the current medical market is the lack of quality control and dosing standards. The diversity and the quality of the dispensaries and growers is very significant, and a patient, I think it is very hard to comprehend these discrepancies. When we first began our biotech company, we had the idea of performing clinical observation studies on patients using specific strains of cannabis. We opted for a strain called Harlequin because of its popularity in the medical community. We purchased Harlequin products from several dispensaries and performed analytical testing on the samples. Comparing between samples, we saw as high as a 4,000% variability in CBD levels. Many dispensaries will pay to have analytical profiles run on their cannabis, which will allow patients to determine what medication is right for them based on the data, not a name on the jar. We believe this should be required for all dispensaries. Besides analytical testing data on cannabinoid content, we would strongly advocate for microbial testing and aflatoxin testing. We performed DNA sequencing of these samples we bought in the medical dispensaries and found a wide variety of microbial species present, many which are harmless, but some left us wondering how the cannabis was being handled. For example, we identified moderate levels of vaginosis on one sample, which is, well, exactly what it kind of sounds like. Currently, patients have no guarantees that products they are ingesting or inhaling are free of potential harmful bacteria, mold, or toxins. All cannabis sold under 502 is required to have microbial and cannabinoid testing. It is our strong belief that medical should be held to at least this standard, if not higher.
Thank you for brevity. Thank you for the testimony.
Members of the committee, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. For those of you who don't know, I was a U.S. Marine. I have
We
never
need
tried.
you to identify yourself.
I'm Ryan Day. I'm sorry. I was a U.S. Marine. I've never tried cannabis in my life, and I grow and process cannabis for my 6-year-old son. I want to let you know a little bit about how this has changed our life so it can be put in context of the bill. When my son Hayden and the rest of my family moved to this state, he was in the process of losing all his language at 4 years old. He was in the process of losing his motor skills. We were destined to a wheelchair and probably non-communicative vegetative state, as happens with most kids with Dravet. Today, my son Hayden knows how to run, which he never could do before. He is putting multiple words together in sentences. He is communicating both verbally and non-verbally. And most of all, we have gotten off of 2 medicines, one of which was very harmful, and we have reduced the doses of 3 others significantly. We have not been into the emergency room once since we started CBD with my son. When we lived in Virginia, they knew us by name and by sight because we were there at least once a month, if not more. My son's life has been changed, and consequently my whole family's life has been changed because of this. The reason why this is pertinent to the bill is because for the past year and a half, I have been working with this cure for my son that has helped us lead a better life, and it seems like every couple of months, the rug is about to be pulled out from under us. There is no bill. There are regulations from the LCB which might reduce our ability to home grow. The bill last year, there were multiple bills last year that never came through. And in the end, it's created a huge amount of doubt and uncertainty for us in a situation where we are under enough stress already, and we really need some form of guidance and solid law that we can rest on so that we know that we're safe and that our son is safe. The one thing I would add is that I hope that, in the medical market, it is unregulated. It is the Wild West, and I had a very unfun experience trying to navigate that at first, but there are good actors out there. There are people that do everything they can to try and make sure that they run a legitimate, good business and serve patients, and I hope that you'll create a pathway for those good actors to carry on into whatever the future system is.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for all that you've done to help your son.
So calling up to testify, John Worthington, Arthur West.
We have to keep the room quiet, please.
John Worthington, Arthur West, and James Barber. Queuing up behind them, Vicki Christofferson, Mary Cooper, and Michelle Grogan.
John Worthington, City of Renton, testifying against the bill. I'm going to start out, I am speaking to the bill when I show this. Washington State is contractually obligated to eradicate marijuana in 3 different...
Pardon me, Madam Chair. Just for the record, are you testifying on behalf of the City of Renton, or are you a citizen?
Against the bill.
But are you a citizen of the City of Renton, or are you representing the city, the municipality of Renton?
Just a citizen of Renton.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Washington State has signed 3 federal grants to eradicate marijuana and also seize marijuana for the DEA. The state of Washington can't figure out whether it wants to seize marijuana, eradicate it, or sell it. You're going to have to answer that question. Don't feel bad. The last few bills, the last few years, haven't addressed that problem. This is the 7th year I provided these grants to the legislature, and you're going to have to answer that question. It's hard to take any marijuana legislation seriously until you address the problem and make a firm decision. We're going to either eradicate marijuana or we're going to sell marijuana. As far as the authorization goes, so I see your 16-year-old snowboarder and your marijuana authorization in a hemp vest tent, and I raise you state marijuana eradication program. You're going to have to decide. I'll take your legislation more seriously once you do that. It just makes it seem like you're not really serious about medical marijuana or even recreational marijuana, as long as you just can't tell law enforcement that they can't sign those federal grants. Authorizations. 4 years ago, they said we didn't have enough of them, and they expanded the amount of people who could write authorizations. So if you want to roll back that initiative and maybe cut back on some of the abuse, and how does that affect my rights as a personal home grower? Why did the storefront model have to spill over on me? Why do I have to lose my rights? Why did the cities ban residential collective gardens when they were operating as the legislature intended? You give them an inch, they take a mile, and the media's been real good at exposing our weaknesses and completely ignoring theirs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name's Arthur West. I'm from the 22nd District. To me, this bill's not so much about marijuana as it is about revenue and regulatory capture. I hope everyone's familiar with the term regulatory capture. That's when the government creates a monopoly on a commodity and regulates it, and the price shoots up astronomically for a small group of people. That's what 502 is all about, and it's impacting patients. Now, we appreciate the fine work that Senator Rivers has done, and I'm sure she has good intentions. Unfortunately, from last year and from the tone of this bill, patients do not trust Senator Rivers. We do not trust this bill. We don't see this bill or the Liquor Control Board as acting in our interests. We see this as an attack on patient rights.
I want you to keep your comments to the bill and not attacking any of our members.
I'm talking about the perception of patients. It might not be accurate. It's our perception. I think that's a valid point. I'm glad to hear the Liquor Control Board and Ms. Rivers have the interests of the patients at heart and want to provide safe access to quality medicine. I hope they'll reach out to the actual patients and work with us so that we can accomplish this goal. This hasn't happened in the past. That's the reason for the distrust. A free market with minimal regulation has its own dynamic. The Soviet Union's system of regulation didn't work. High taxes on commodities didn't work for Louis XIV. The critical issue we're dealing with here is the patients, the poor people and patients and disabled people's right to grow versus commercial interests. Those two shouldn't be mixed or combined. As a last point, the Cole Memorandum does not tell the state what to do. The 4 U.S. attorneys who are representing the federal government in the U.S. District Court and the District of Columbia are emphatic on that point. The Cole Memorandum is merely a guideline to U.S. attorneys. It does not affect a commandeering action, and if it did, it would violate the 10th Amendment. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the panel. My name is James E. Barber, Sr., and I'm from Clark County, Senator Rivers district area. I met last year with Ms. Rivers, and unfortunately I wanted to talk about her proposed bills and stuff, but she did nothing but attack me, so I'd like to move on from that.
Sir, please keep your comments to the bill.
That's what I'm going to do. I was just wanting to let you know that I was attacked prior to even coming here. I went and took some advice from Senator Rivers and went to one of the recreational stores and purchased some marijuana from that store. Unfortunately, it had 5 pesticides sprayed on it. It made me sick. I have an autoimmune condition. My immune system is compromised. This is totally wrong to be forcing somebody like me into that system. I'm lucky I didn't end up in the hospital or end up dead from it. Another issue is taking away patients' rights. This is my 60-day supply that I showed Senator Rivers. This is a 75 plant, 48 ounce, 60-day supply, which says patient's condition requires 75 plants to maintain 48 ounces of usable cured cannabis. He is authorized to ingest, vaporize, or smoke it for his for tritation as he needs it. This is my medical record file that went through the Social Security system. This 60-day supply also went through the Social Security system and was testified to by a medical practitioner that was an expert witness that was hired by the federal government to come in and testify on my medical records and the recommendation was no pharmaceutical drug products for this patient. It is absolutely mandated that he uses the what they called
and I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to stop because the time's up.
Thank you for allowing us to testify today.
Thank you, sir.
So calling up to testify, Vicki Christopherson, Mary Cooper, and Michelle Grogan. Queuing up behind them, I'm going to do a city panel, so it will be Scott Pasquiliak, John Shoshet, and somebody representing the Association of Washington Cities that I have since lost, but you probably know you're out there. I'm looking for the names. Candace Bach. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam Chair, members of the committee. Just for the record, Mary Cooper is being replaced by the much better looking Eric Cooper today, so that's not Mary. For the record, my name is Vicki Christofferson. I'm here today representing the Washington Cannabis Business Association. We are a trade association representing solely licensed, taxed, tested, and law-abiding 502 businesses in this state. We're very happy to be here today supporting Senator Rivers and the effort to bring this bill to fruition and strongly support it for two basic reasons. First, as Senator Dammeier and Senator Brown, through your questions, you identified that it ensures safe access to patients. That should be the #1 goal for the state. And currently there is no requirements for medical products for testing or safety or dosage. I know of no other medication in the world that enjoys that freedom from regulation. So we feel like that is a critical component of this legislation, and we need to keep our eyes on that key point. It also ensures that products that are marketed to children and currently being illegally sold to children, that be stopped. We have grave concern and have lots of evidence, as others have, that current gray market, some gray market dispensaries are marketing and selling to children, and the state has an interest in making sure that that does not occur. Finally, for our licensed, taxed, tested, highly regulated businesses that are operating under the voter-mandated system of 5502, this bill ensures a level playing field for those businesses that are currently having a difficult time competing with the gray market.
Thank you.
So we very much appreciate your consideration of the bill and look forward to working with you as it moves forward.
Thank you. The timer doesn't seem to be, there it is. Okay.
Hello, my name is Michelle Grogan. I am the COO of Green America, which is a Tier 3 producer processor in Kelso. I'm also a member of the Cannabis Association. Thank you, Senator Rivers and committee, for this opportunity. We are here today to express our support for the Cannabis Patient Protection Act. Our belief is that this legislation is critical to establishing a single enforceable system for all legalized cannabis that is fair for legitimate businesses, licensed businesses, and safe for all consumers in Washington State. Green America has never wavered from our mission not only to be a successful business, but a responsible citizen. For us, this means educating and informing our customers about the science behind our products, complying with rigorous testing and quality controls, and doing so with the transparency that regulations require, and that gives our customers added confidence about the products that we are offering. As a licensed business, it is of serious concern to us that not all consumers benefit from the safety measures and regulations that protect our I-502 customers and the public. We also believe it should be of concern to elected leaders like you. Until there is a single marketplace that is accountable to consumers and enforceable by law, the legal cannabis industry in Washington will be unfairly disadvantaged by following the rules, while unregulated players thrive in an environment with no requirements or oversight. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment, and we urge your support for the Cannabis Patient Protection Act.
Hi, my name is Eric Cooper. I'm the owner of Monkey Grass Farms. We are a Tier 3 producer processor in the great city of Wenatchee. I am a lifelong resident there. And we are a member of the Washington Cannabis Association. Myself, my partners, we have spent a great deal of time and money growing and starting this marijuana business for the legal purpose. And though no business comes with a guarantee of making it or having success, we just have found that in most of the businesses that we've always been on a level playing field with our peers, and right now that's not happening with this parity with the medical and the 502. Not only are they free from any type of taxes, but more importantly, they're free from having any testing done on their products whatsoever. We used to be involved in that business, and what used to come through our door was atrocious, and it usually went right back out. So from the moment of our first sale, our prices have always been good to the retailers. But today, we're selling the same gram for half the amount now. From $8 we were selling it to down to $4. So we are at this point urging to support this bill, not only on an economic stance for the 502 that's gone through the process, but also for the protection of the medical patient on testing and controlling their products as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Calling up to testify Scott Pasquilak, John Sochet, and Candace Bach. Queuing up behind them will be Gina Garcia, Aaron Palmer, and Michael Mazzetti.
Thank you. Please go ahead and start.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Candace Bach, representing the Association of Washington Cities. We'd like to thank Senator Rivers and the many others who've been working on this issue for their leadership in bringing this bill forward. Cities strongly support the need to reconcile the medical and recreational markets in our state. Cities are struggling with an unregulated and proliferation of medical marijuana businesses and a lot of concern about patient safety, about where the product is going. Is it going into the hands of criminal activity? Is it leaving our state? And concern about the businesses themselves being the targets of crime. So we have been asking for and will continue to ask for you to adopt regulations for the medical marijuana industry that address patient access, patient safety, and help us partner with you in regulating this industry in our state. We think that this is in the best interest of our state succeeding in this experiment with medical marijuana and now recreational marijuana. And we think that many of the features in this bill will move us very far forward in achieving that. We do know that this bill is probably, there's likely to be changes. It's a bit of a work in progress, and we want to continue to partner with you in making sure that our state this year passes medical marijuana regulation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Scott Pluskalek, and I'm with the City of Seattle. To begin, I would like to thank Senator Rivers for her work on this bill and to the committee for bringing it forward for a hearing. I would also like to thank Senator Cole-Wells for her efforts over the years on this issue. The city strongly supports the legislators' work on this issue. The status quo currently serves neither patients nor neighborhoods and creates a confusing legal landscape for law enforcement. We need state action to help the challenging landscapes that we face in our community. Like many communities across the state, the City of Seattle needs a well-regulated state marijuana system for both medical and recreational marijuana products that allows for clarity for our city departments and police to clearly identify and reduce the black market to allow our nascent legal industry to survive and thrive. At the same time, we seek flexibility. It is essential that the city maintain and even strengthen its ability to mitigate the impacts these businesses have on our communities, especially the clustering effects that we have begun to see due to the strict siting and distance requirements under 502. The city will be working with the legislature on tools that the city can use to aid us in locally requiring the dispersion of these businesses and to lessen the impacts of clustering. We, in addition, would like to see regulations on hash oil and concentrates to protect communities from the harm that can be done by the manufacture and unregulated production of these products. So we look very much forward to working with you during the legislative session to pass a bill on this important issue. Thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is John Shockett. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff with the Seattle City Attorney's Office. The current unregulated medical marijuana system, particularly the structure of collective gardens and the affirmative defense, is unworkable, and it presents significant challenges for both local government and law enforcement, especially with the additional task of implementing I-502. We strongly support regulating medical marijuana and harmonizing that system with the I-502 recreational and adult use system, and to do that in a way that ensures that I-502 succeeds, keeps people out of the black market, and protects the rights of legitimate patients. Specifically, what we need done is clarifying precisely what is legal, what the legal ways are to manufacture, process, and sell marijuana, and then what outside of that system is illegal. I want to thank Senator Rivers for her important work in introducing this bill and on this issue in general. I also want to thank all of the other members of the legislature who have worked on this issue over the years and continuing this year, including Senator Jeannie Colwell's. We look forward to working with everyone in the legislature and the stakeholders on continuing marijuana legislation this year. I'd like to highlight a few specific issues that we support on behalf of the City Attorney's Office. The first is in creating a regulated system, most of the offenses outside of that system remain felonies, which makes it difficult to enforce on a practical level. And what we'd like to see is some of the lower end offenses turn into misdemeanors and to remove the mandatory 24-hour minimum sentence for misdemeanors while leaving more serious offenses as felonies. And we'd also like to see clarification around hash oil, specifically clarifying that home production is illegal and the only way to legally produce hash oil is through licensed, state-licensed facilities that are safe. Thank you.
So I do have a question then, because under your Senator Rivers' bill, as I understand it, people will still be able to have plants in their home.
There's a provision for the limited cooperative.
Okay, that's what I thought. So is that still an issue then if we have that limited in this bill?
We've proposed some language which we sent to Senator Rivers. Home grows and the cooperatives as proposed in the bill are fine from our perspective. What we oppose is unlicensed manufacture of hash oil. So growing plants and processing that is one thing. The process of turning it into hash oil that can create significant fire and explosion hazards if it's done without proper precautions. So what we support is requiring that only be done through a state licensed process. But regular home grows just involving plants wouldn't need to be state licensed if they're part of the system.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Calling up the next panel is Gina Garcia, Aaron Palmer, and Michael Mazzetti. Queuing up behind them will be Ike Eisenberg, John Branch, and Angela Jao.
Thank you. Please start.
Okay. Good morning, Madam. My name is Gina Garcia, and I am from Okanagan County. Many around where we live off the grid. We do not have a long season in which to grow. For us, we throw them out in the spring and harvest them in the fall for the most part. We cannot grow indoors all year round like they can on this side of the mountain, unless they grow indoors, and to many it's too much of a financial burden to do so with the cost of electricity. They would have to choose to pay for medicine or pay their bills. The initiatives seem geared towards those who live on this side of the mountain. Even with the delivery, that charge has got to be tacked somewhere, and it's going to probably end up with the patient. The other issue is the no dried flowers. That's the basis of all of our medicine. That's how we make our butter and our oil and our balm and our salve and our tinctures. Without it, we don't have anything. The dried herb is not only the main ingredient, but it's also a way to get a quick relief for like PTSD, breakthrough pain, anxiety, depression, and for myself as well as many others. I am a veteran and I also have PTSD. And all of my conditions are all joint related, tissue related. It's not obvious what I have until you go look at my x-rays and you see all the pins and plates and all that stuff, right? So please consider the whole state when you decide on what to do with our medicine. The medicine makes me a functional member of society. Without it, I don't leave my home. As of last month, I have finally removed myself from the last pharmaceutical, which was levothyroxine. I no longer have any pharmaceuticals. My only medicine is this. Without it, I'm being forced to go back to pharmaceuticals, and I just cannot do that. I never left my home. I'm a grandmother, and I want to play with my grandchildren.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for service.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erin Palmer. I'm from the 22nd District. I'm been a medical cannabis patient since 2006, and I'm disabled due to a genetic disorder that causes a lot of secondary conditions. It gives me a lot of qualifying conditions. I oppose this bill because, first of all, the ban on no smokable or vapable flowers for retail sales. Not all patients can grow physically or are able to find someone, a designated provider. I need to smoke or vape for instant. I have chronic nausea due to gastroparesis, and I have 4 medications here for nausea, but they all take about 20 to 30 minutes to take effect. Vaping is instant, and smoking is not the only option. There are a lot of different options for vaping. There are also recent studies that dispute that smoking causes lung damage. There are actually some studies that say that it is helpful for your lungs. So that's tricky science right now and highly debatable. Flowers are also cheaper than other forms. I prefer to make my own remedies with it due to lots of allergies and sensitivities to other ingredients. And flowers have a different effect on the body than ingested or topically used. My main concern is the high cost. Right now I pay $6 to $8 a gram directly from the grower. I can't even afford the medical dispensaries right now. There's no way I will be able to afford a highly regulated system that sounds similar to the 502 system. Or any taxes. And please don't make patients into felons for sharing. I'm on disability, I get $8.74 a month. I rely on free medication from people.
Thank you. Going to move forward here. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Mazzetti. I live in the Okanagan Highlands. I'm a Vietnam era veteran and a medical cannabis patient. This bill restricts the use of cannabis by medical patients, as it does not allow the use for possession of the flowers of the plant. I don't believe that regulation of medical cannabis should have anything to do with the Liquor Control Board. I believe it should be locally controlled. This bill makes assumptions and limitations about the compounds of cannabis as being THC and CBD, etc. But the jury's still out on this, and we need to know more about all of the other 85 plus components of this plant. Every patient is different, every treatment is different, every individual patient is different. And jurisdictionally limiting the components of the plant for medicinal use is short-sighted. This plant is an agricultural product and, in my opinion, needs to be grown organically and outdoors. The plant allowance in this bill does not take into consideration various horticultural conditions nor the individual needs of the patient. All households need to be able to grow this herb, in my opinion. Medical patients deserve full consideration as they pursue their healing, and we should not be constrained by the laws that have limited facts. I don't believe in a database, as no other medical patients in this state have become part of a database or are required to be that. We prohibit sampling, and I believe that one of the things going into a facility is you need to try different products to see what works for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Senator Frock has a question for one of you.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, I was reading your testimony, and I just wanted to ask, the bill has an authorization if there's a healthcare provider authorizes it to grow as much as 15 plants, and I noticed in your testimony that was about the amount that you grow. Would
that's for me,
would that
yeah.
work for you? I mean,
For me personally?
could you comment on just generally on
I will.
that issue?
For me personally, 15 works just fine, but for a neighbor that I know, he's a cancer patient and he needs 30. And so it depends on the person again, you know. For me, I can do just fine with 15.
Would getting a
if I grow outdoors.
What about getting the authorization, the medical authorization? Would that be a workable way for you?
If you leave it like it is, well, what happens right now is I can go through the VA and I can get a copy of my medical records, and then I have to go to an authorizing clinic and get them to look at my medical records, and then they determine if I am qualified to be a patient or not, and then they say yes or no. Well, right now I've been a patient since 2008. I'm over 100% disabled. It doesn't look like it. I've got invisible disabilities, but yes, I can do with 15 because of how I take my medicine. I make my oil, my full extract cannabis oil.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we're going to try to get, my goal is to get 3 more panels in. We might not be able to do it. Ian Eisenberg, John Branch, and Angela J.O. And then I'm going to start going from those that are coming the farthest from out of town. So after that, I want Allison Holcomb. Let's see, there was somebody from Washington, D.C. Steph Shera and Jason Duck.
Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ian Eisenberg, and I'm a member of the Washington Cannabis Business Association. I own and operate Uncle Ike's pot shop in Seattle, which is a licensed and legally operating retail store under I-502. While some of the noise this morning on the Cannabis Patient Protection Act indicates there is something controversial about the legislation, as a licensed and legal operator under I-502, to me the only thing at question is how long before everyone must follow the law, not just a fraction of us. I'm not against medical marijuana patients. I'm not against affordable products that bring relief. What I'm for is a safe, quality-controlled, wholly legal marketplace where every single entity permitted to grow, process, and sell cannabis in this state competes fairly with every other operator. My business success or failure should not ride on whether or not my nearest competitor has to follow the law, especially when I and my licensed colleagues have stepped up and voluntarily submitted to a rigorous state-mandated system. From inspection to submitting the right taxes, we follow the law. Doing so should not work against us. It should be an endorsement of doing the right thing. The eyes of the country are on elected leaders like you to treat this new industry as it would any other. To me and other licensed members of the Washington Cannabis Business Association, that means consistent application of the law as endorsed by voters under I-502. We stand for safety, quality control, inspection, enforcement, and other public values that protect consumers and our communities. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard, and I ask for your support of the Cannabis Patient Protection Act.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Angela J.O., and I'm a member of the Washington Cannabis Association, and I'm also CEO of a Tier 3 producer processor in Kelso. Many of our fellow 502 licensed colleagues have or will testify about safety, quality control, fairness, and competitiveness, and I wholeheartedly second their remarks. We have an incredible opportunity to resolve the dichotomy of the old so-called medical system and the recently passed legal marijuana system in our state. I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important it is to lay groundwork, not only for today, but going forward into the future. Our company, which is highly regulated and monitored, could legally offer the medical products legitimate patients depend on today. There are also innovators, as you've heard from today, in the legal cannabis space wanting to collaborate and develop new products that could particularly benefit legitimate medical patients. It's apparent that we need advanced policies offering increased public safety and quality control in regard to medical patients and products. When you consider the Cannabis Patient Protection Act, do so keeping these innovators and legally licensed entrepreneurs in mind. And on behalf of us, I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Branch. I'm a partner at the law firm of Lowe, Graham & Jones and a 502 retailer located in Seattle. I'm also a member of the Washington Cannabis Association, and I'm here to support the Cannabis Patient Protection Act. This legislation will provide a framework to ensure clean, reliable, and safe access to cannabis and related products for authorized recreational consumers and patients. Also, the legislation will provide a regulatory framework to ensure the collection of taxes on the majority of cannabis sold in Washington state. As a 502 licensed retailer, this bill will provide certainty in regard to how cannabis can be successfully sold for all uses. At this time, the unregulated medical retailers compete directly with the 502 licensed retailers for customers. However, the medical retailers are not required to pay the significant 502 excise tax, nor are they required to only sell products that are tested for safety. I encourage you to support business people like me across the state who need this legislation to compete equally in the marketplace. This legislation makes it so my licensed, regulated retail business can successfully provide clean, reliable, and safe access to cannabis products for both medical and non-medical users in the Seattle area. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I urge you to support the Cannabis Patient Protection Act.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the final panel, Jason Duck, Steph Shera, and Allison Holcomb.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, fellow committee members. My name is Allison Holcomb. I've recently moved to the National American Civil Liberties Union, but today I'm testifying on behalf of the ACLU of Washington State. We are testifying in opposition to Senator Rivers' bill today. We understand that it will be undergoing some amendments, and our position may very well change. We want to thank Senator Rivers for her hard work on this bill and on the work we know that she's planning to do moving forward. Our concerns focus on two features of the bill. One is that this bill actually proposes to create a parallel system of medical marijuana-only stores. One of our concerns about a system that approaches a parallel market like that is that if that second set of stores has any sort of competitive advantage over the non-medical stores, it will incentivize abuse and it will increase administrative and enforcement costs to the community. The flip side is that if that system truly is only serving bona fide patients, there's a risk that there's simply not enough demand to support such a system of parallel stores statewide. So we think that the better approach would be essentially to attach medical certification to products and people. Create medical grade products, create medical consultants that have specialized information and can provide patients the information that they need, and then create special medical certifications for underage patients so that we ensure that there's adequate supervision of their use of cannabis. The second concern that we have is the registry. This is work that ACLU of Washington is engaged in for many years, especially with Senator Cole Wells. There are significant concerns for patients because all of this activity remains a crime under federal law. Our proposal is to simply allow all adults to grow a small amount of marijuana for themselves. I understand there are concerns about youth access, but I want to encourage us to consider that it's not necessary to criminalize adults engaging in responsible behavior to protect our youth. We have the ability to protect them in other ways. We have the ability to explain why some behaviors are for adults and not for children. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Hello, I want to thank Senator Rivers for introducing this bill, and I'm actually here with 300 of our 8,000 Washington members. My name is Steph Shear. I'm the Executive Director of Americans for Safe Access, and we've been engaged here in Washington in actually trying to create a regulatory system for medical cannabis for some time, and as people have spoken about before today, we came very close in 2011. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the regulations that are being used for 502 were not created by 502. They were not created by the Liquor Control Board. That knowledge base actually came from the medical cannabis community. We've been working on creating the medical cannabis monograph that came from the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia, which is the basis of the 502 regulations. This was paid for by patient advocates. And the regulatory system that you're using is actually came from the American Herbal Products Association. Everything from how to regulate regulate this plant from seed to consumption. So these were created by the medical cannabis community that were adopted first by 502. What we want to see is actually a separate system. I don't think anybody would want to support a system if the liquor stores came to you and said, we would like to make more money, please let us fulfill subscription drugs. Right? It doesn't even pass the laugh test. And what we're asking is to send patients into a recreational environment to get their medicine. And I just want to invite you to think about this. Sending someone who has stage 4 cancer to talk to somebody about their medicine that may not have the information that they need or all the products that they need. So I just ask that you understand that everyone wants to see medical cannabis regulated. No one's arguing that. We're not here to make sure that 502 stores make more money. We're here to make sure that the intent of the voters to protect medical cannabis patients is kept intact through this process. We were promised by the proponents of 502 that our program wouldn't end. Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to stop you because we are out of time, but I want to hear your
And I will leave these for you.
Please go ahead.
My name is Jason Duck. I'm a former lieutenant commander from the United States Navy who's 100% disabled. I suffered an IED explosion, and I am a medical patient. At one point in time, I was on 9 different MAOIs, and now I smoke and I sleep at night. Let me tell you, walking into a recreational store and having the people just not know anything, not been there, don't know what you're going through, speaks a lot. When you walk in and you guys want to talk about possibly restricting our meds, I'm a grower now myself, and I'll tell you that, yeah, you cut me down to 6 plants, I'm going to start running the tax bill up again because I was at one point at $4,000 a month just through the VA for my medication. I mean, you guys up here, I'd like to say you guys should go spend about 20 minutes just in one of these collectives, as you guys talk about. See the difference between the people coming in and going into a recreational. See their needs. See the help that they need to get. Because I'll tell you what, you cut down everything and you take it from people and we have to start paying more, it's going to start costing everybody the long run of it. It's going to get more expensive. It's going to run everything up. I pay about $400 a month now compared to doing over $3,000 a month. In the next 7 years, I'm going to be blind because of the damage I sustained in combat. I'm already on enough drops itself, plus with my medication mix, just so I can barely see the colors I can see now. It's getting harder and harder for all the patients out here to get the help they need. I mean, I was denied federal employment because I had cancer a year and a half ago, and I admitted to smoking marijuana. I mean, it automatically terminated me from any federal service ever again. And just regulating what you guys are doing, keeping it an open market the way it is the safe bet. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. And we're going to read into testimony now the names of the folks that have not been able to testify.
So the following people signed in to testify, but unfortunately we were not able to get to them. Pro, Harry Partle II, Michael Ray, Cheryl Corbett, Chris Keeley, Jeff Gilmore, Christy Weeks, Jeremy Larson, Matthew Delos, Jeffrey Lipscomb, Katie Harmon, Sharon Whitson, Deborah Bletcher, Sean Wegenseller, Todd Harris, Carrie Harris, Mark Nelson, Con,
and I just recently got diagnosed with
Harrison Macaulay Hill, Kirk Luden, Debbie Hansen, Melissa Hissam, Allison, we got her, Derek Franklin, Nancy Matthew, John Kingsbury, Tom Lauerman, Gloria Kaltike, Kevin Heydrich, Sonia Leva, Christina Clark, Katie Harmon, Lisa Buchanan, Damian Klauber, Matson Kelly, Mark Nelson, other, Jake Felice.
So, folks, we still need
Lucas
you to be
Barfield.
seated and quiet. Okay.
Tyler Markwart, Sharon Nelson, Jeremy Kaufman, Jedediah Haney, Mitch Barker, Linda Batista, George Tanner, David Murray, Gary Rue, Linda Schaefer, Justin Williams, Jenna Williams, Walker Bryan, Mary Guess, Patrick Rooney, Sharon Marshall, Ava Tuxbury, Pamela Widhaber, and Robert Hill. Madam Chair, that concludes those who wish to testify.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming. You know, from my perspective, medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, I want people to know right up front, a number of us have had relatives, maybe some of us have had to be on medical marijuana, not myself, but my brother. We look at this from all perspectives, trying to make good decisions, and we totally appreciate you coming today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.